Good afternoon. My name is Kat Stevens, and this is my senior seminar video presentation for senior seminar in psychology for David Cox class. This video presentation is due May 3rd. My presentation topic is how authoritative parenting style can increase the anxiety in white college students. So, with some background information, every parent has a unique way that they teach and raise their children. Parents raise kids with many rules, and some raise their children with no rules. Multiple factors can play into this, such as siblings, economic class, job status, stress level of parent, control of emotions, household types, whether it's divorced parents, separated parents, married parents, single parents, relationship status of parents, and relationship status between parents and siblings or siblings and siblings. This can influence how a parent raises their child. By studying specific parenting styles and anxiety amongst white college students, we can see if there's a relevance specifically between parenting styles and the increase of anxiety amongst white college students. So, some previous studies that have been done based off of parenting styles is that the effects of different parenting styles and the long term and short term effects that they have on children. One such study was conducted to examine the effects on parenting styles between races on the age at which adolescents began using alcohol. Since parents share a large part of child's development and the prevention of substance use, these researchers were able to compare the trajectory of white and black adolescents and when they started drinking alcohol. So, according to one study by Clark, Yang, McLaurin, and Flammarion, they saw that Black adolescents who perceive a stronger parent child relationship or parent control and family attachment ended up scoring higher versus the white adolescents who actually scored lower because they seeked more approval from their peers. What the study shows is that Black adolescents end up having a stronger relationship with their families and do not fall into the peer pressure as white adolescents do. With this being said, it seems that white adolescents seek more approval from peers than the Black adolescents. The research that they used was a 20-item parent peer orientation Likert scale that shows that Black adolescents are more likely to have better relationships with those that they live than those they go to school with, which means the white adolescents are more likely to be influenced by their peers to drink alcohol, which then can increase the anxiety between them and their parents and them and their siblings at home. Since young adulthood begins with most drinking, the study found that Black adolescents do not consume as much alcohol as white adolescents do. With this being said, Black adolescents report a lower alcohol use but tend to have a greater number of alcohol-related consequences than white adolescents end up having a greater likelihood of substance use disorder in young adulthood. Even though Black adolescents tend to drink less than white adolescents, they still have a deal with an increased number of consequences when drinking. Usually this can include when cops show up, they end up going to jail, but it is more likely that a Black adolescent is to be accused of those things rather than a white adolescent. White adolescents tend to drink more and are more likely to have a substance use disorder in emerging adulthood. This outcome can be examined about the authoritative parenting style. The research states that adolescents who had authoritative parenting styles were less likely to initiate use than adolescents whose parenting styles were authoritarian, permissive, or neglective parenting style. What this means is parents who have authoritative parenting style and communicate with their children are less likely to consume alcohol. They completed a study using the 20-item parent peer orientation scale to determine which parenting style was best used and which adolescent was exposed to while growing up. The questions were asked on the parent peer orientation scale and were based on parental acceptance and control, which is used to understand which parenting style a child had while growing up. Authoritative parenting has been shown that the most effective parenting style has been shown as the most effective parenting style through continued studies and research. Parents and children influence each other's behaviors when together and apart. Parents' behaviors toward a child is often a reaction to the child's behavior, and their behaviors continuously influencing each other in their interactions over time and eventually developing into an enduring structure. This is from Tiaki and Tiaki of 2008. Since parents and children spend so much time together and are changing and growing together, they influence each other significantly. As they influence each other's behaviors and thoughts change as they go through similar experiences and different things. Tiaki and Tiaki defined parenting in 1975 as a series of decisions about the socialization of the child. In 1981, they expanded on this idea, noting that two dimensions of parental behavior that has been received considerable attention as child socialization literature, parental support and parental control, which also refer to the parental responsive and parental demandingness, respectively. They thought that with this theory, they could have an important level of support and a low level of control children, which would develop into a stronger way when parents are supportive and responsible to their child's needs and wants, which can build a stronger relationship between the child and the parents. When they have a stronger relationship, it increases the chance of a child having a healthier mental state. Authoritative parents are more likely to be involved in a child's life and education by encouraging them to do well on assignments, projects, and tests. This can lead to higher expectations of grades when in school, which is important to get to the college. This can become the norm throughout the academic years. Children who have authoritarian parents are more likely to have lower academic grades because the parents are not involved in the child's life as much as authoritative parents. This research has also mentioned that parents who have or children who have authoritarian parents are more likely to show more problems in the classroom, whether it's fighting, biting, talking out, or being rude. That is some examples of how a child can cause problems in the classroom and can be examples of authoritarian parents. Authoritative parenting is related to at least one positive child outcome, and authoritarian parenting is at least one negative child outcome in all assessed. Positive associations of authoritarian parenting with internalizing and externalizing problems, such as showing these problems in the classroom, as well as the negative associations of the parenting style with academic achievement. This is whether they show the problems or not in school of the authoritarian parenting style. In this study, the researchers were looking at different countries and regions around the world and compared parenting styles with academic outcomes. They ended up finding out that children who had authoritative parenting were more likely to have a positive outcome and a positive outcome on their academics. They found that children who had an authoritarian parenting styles were more likely to have negative outcomes in both behavior and academics. So, as we move towards the mental health section and understand more of the anxiety that students can have throughout their adolescence, that can increase the anxiety in college with authoritative parenting. Within the last couple decades, mental health has become a very large and bigger issue in adolescence and is becoming more obvious, specifically with anxiety and depression. Both of these issues can affect many parts of life. According to Fox, Harpland, and Forsyth, they are linked to excessive impairments of social functioning and quality of life. They can affect how a person socializes at work or school. It can affect how they do things at home with their routine, which can also have a lasting impact on their quality of life, as they may not be able to focus on what they're supposed to be doing. Instead, these individuals may be distracted by the symptoms of anxiety, depression. Although it is sometimes obvious that the etiology of one's anxiety and depression symptoms can be shown through the internalizing problems that are linked to their childhood in school and social impairments through development. This could include making friends and focusing on schoolwork that can make it very difficulty. With behavior, it could be school refusal, truancy, or lower academic achievement. Anxiety and depression can start in childhood and lead into adolescence, which is why children end up internalizing what they are feeling because it can make them very difficult to go through the developmental stages correctly, which can affect all their aspects of life. According to the article with Forks, Harpland, and Forsyth in 2008, 75% of all cases of anxiety begins in childhood and adolescence. There's a high percentage of anxiety disorder that begins during the development years of adolescence and parents having a challenging time seeing if their child is struggling when they are younger. They found that parents tend to have a smaller burden on the family and need for mental health services if their child has internalizing symptoms rather than symptoms of an externalizing disorder. Since parents have a tough time seeing the internalizing symptoms because of the busy life of being a parent, it can make it exceptionally difficult to tell if a child is actually having symptoms of anxiety and depression or whether they're just going through a developmental stage, which is why it's important to understand the developmental stages and what entails each stage to understand what a child could be going through. Another study that was done recently, a study that was done in 2001, a group of researchers studied the behavioral health problems that were perceived by parents' perceptions who were seeking therapy support. Through this study, we're going to study the evidence-based therapy, which is EBT. EBT can be used for adolescents who have an increased behavioral health problems. EBT is great because it's the best treatment for a patient, which is backed by scientific evidence and research. This can be used in different practices in psychopathology and general healthcare. It is best for a therapist to focus on well-established treatments with adolescents that have a strong research support and independently investigator teams working at different research settings based on an article from the EBT and Therapy 2016. Those who are involved with therapy practices have noticed that parents don't understand the principles of EBT and the long-term benefits if it can have for an adolescent through their research. Through this, the research has found that parents from a racial, ethnic, or minority group with lower income or lower education have a very difficult time defining EBT correctly. This is why it's important for those who are in those to understand the importance behind mental health, because EBT therapy can help those with anxiety to understand the causes and effects of the anxiety that it has on an individual, especially during the developmental years. They have examined the effects of adolescent substance released related problems based on prior work indicating that the substance use symptoms severity is a significant predictor of parents treatment seeking behavior. By examining substance related problems that affect adolescents, they're able to see how severe the symptoms would be based on the parents' treatment seeking behavior toward their children. Researchers want to know how parents perceive therapy for their kids and the best way to pursue therapy for them. So by asking these questions to the parents and understand how well they know EBT can help understand how much help the child needs. They found that all parents ranked therapist quality as the most important factor, and parents of adolescents with externalizing illegal problems ranked therapists highly accessible along with ranked wait time as less important, according to Crane Healthseth and Scott of 2021. What this means is adolescents who had externalizing problems found that parents focus on the accessibility and ranked time as the second most important according to the survey factors. This was associated with affordability and the convenience for the parents, not the child itself. Some of the things to look at when looking at anxiety and mental health is significantly with the pandemic we just had of COVID-19. A study done by Lorenzo Pazzuco and Bolito of 2021, they found that the greater attachment to parents and peers before the pandemic ended up showing fewer symptoms of total distress and fewer symptoms of depression and anxiety. So what this means is that adolescents and young adults are already at a greater risk of experiencing the mental health challenges, and it's crucial for us to assess and better understand the factors associated with distress levels among this specific population of adolescents and young adults. Studying this specific group is important to understand the importance of developing the development during high school and middle school years for a child. This pandemic affected the current generation of adolescent trauma. So what ended up happening was they actually did a random sample and they took 564 adolescent junior high school students and 493 high school students. And they found that more than 1 in 5 adolescents had been affected, that COVID-19 had affected their mental health. Adolescents and students had their mental health affected by the COVID-19 pandemic because of the sudden loss of peers, schoolwork, and school activities and club. There's also a suddenness of school being put online instead of being in person. That's how the COVID-19 pandemic ended up affecting millions of teens around the world and their mental health, which can then increase anxiety and depression. So, a longitudinal study that we're going to look at studied how sometimes anxiety and depression can indicate what a person's future could look like, determined by past events. The study was launched to look at the relationship between depression and anxiety in children. One of the things they found was that their research focused on attention on anxiety as a precursor to depression, which meant they studied these kids. They found the kids who ended up having anxiety also ended up having depression later. This research ended up proving that anxiety can then end up leading to depression, which clarifies that when anxiety occurs, it is very difficult to take back the control of your life and enjoy the things you once did. Since people end up becoming so focused on the anxiety itself, we end up forgetting about everyone else around us, which then could lead to the depression of the loneliness, and this could also cause the constant numbness and sadness that are associated with depression. Children who present with anxieties that are less adept to experience the rewards of a social academic success at a time crucial are critical to self-concept development. This is according to Cole, Peake, and Martin of 1998. Anxiety can actually eliminate the wants and needs to socialize with peers and can also affect the academic success of a child. This can affect the child significantly because of the period of development. When this occurs, if the anxiety occurs when a child is young, then they're more likely not going to experience the rewards of social and academic success. Other things that can occur with anxiety, depression in children are also low self-esteem, poor social support, low rates of reward, with also being associated with depression in children. This can occur for anybody, but it's more likely to be increased of a child because of how and where a child could be the anxiety, and the parents may not perceive the symptoms exactly as anxiety or something else that could be causing the symptoms for the child. Focusing on the college student aspect of this research. During college years, students experience a considerable number of risk-taking situations and usually experience alcohol and substance use. College drinking behaviors were examined with the association between parenting styles, parental bonds, depression, and alcohol problems in a 2007 study. So what these researchers did is they studied 441 college students and found that parental influences on pathways to alcohol abuse through depression. And they found this was primarily through fathers for both females and male college students. So with that being said, it seems that fathers are distinct from pathways stemming from poor impulse control. This means that parents can influence how their children This explains how parents can influence their children and also have a significant effect on their future. Specifically, how parent and their children and the bonds that children have before going to college can have an effect on their future education at college and their experiences. Through the study, they were able to find that alcohol abuse stemmed from the depression, which ended up coming up from the father, since more likely the father had poor impulse control. Specific parenting styles can also affect and influence how a child perceives alcohol. From a study, they looked at authoritative parenting and they found that it has been positively linked to the viewing of adults as authorities regarding alcohol use. They found that when a college student was rejected by one's father, it appeared to be more influential regarding depression and drinking related problems for college students than was feeling rejected by one's mother. This is from Paddock, Peatmick, and Morgan Lopez of 2007. The research that was being conducted by these people correlates with a lot of past studies that have found that when children are rejected by their father, they're more likely to spiral than to be rejected by a mother. When a father rejects an adolescent, it affects more if they were to be rejected by a mother. In conclusion, it has been found that students who have a more open relationship with their parents end up communicating more and end up talking about how they feel and what is going on with their lives, and when they feel more listened to and heard by their parents, they're more likely to going to discuss the more successful things and the not so successful things going on in life. With this, they're also able to be in college on their own and have a better chance of succeeding at college after having a more open relationship at home and high school. So the hypothesis for my research proposal is that we predict there will be a strong positive correlation between authoritative parenting style and the reported anxiety amongst white college students. Participants. The participants will come from Florida Gulf Coast University and Florida Western State College as our main campuses. Some previous research indicated that the best sample size for us was 500 participants by the moderate effect size. Participants will be recruited from the aforementioned institutions and given a parenting test and the anxiety test. In this correlation study, we will have white college students from the ages of 18 to 24-year-old, which means we don't need a consent form, take the parenting style survey. And the students who indicate that they were raised with the authoritative parenting style will then be administered the anxiety survey. The other thing that we can do is give all students the parenting and the anxiety test and actually compare this with the other parenting styles. So, our control group could be authoritarian and permissive parenting styles as our dependent variable, while our independent variable is the authoritative parenting style, which means we could compare all three parenting styles and the anxiety amongst the college students and compare to see which parenting style actually increases the anxiety amongst white college students, to then figure out if there's a positive or negative correlation between the authoritative parenting style and increased anxiety amongst white college students. The measures. So, the parenting style survey that we're going to use is from a previous study called Parenting Styles and Dimensions Questionnaire, which was developed by Robertson of 1995. It has 62 items that have a variety of different questions. The questions on the survey discuss parental behaviors, and the adolescents are asked to indicate their perceptions on those using a 5-point scale, with 1 equaling never and 5 equaling always. The survey consists of 27 questions about authoritative items, 20 questions about authoritarian items, and 15 questions about permissive items. The anxiety test that we're using is the Penn State Worry Questionnaire, which is a 16-item scale designed to measure a child's or young adult worry and ability to control worry. So they also use a 5-point scale, with 1 equaling not at all typical and 5 equaling very typical of me. The reliability of this study is that each of the measures will be the same along with the participant requirements. The limitations and the validity is that there could also be other correlations with the other parenting styles, but we're aiming and hoping to measure the anxiety amongst authoritative parenting style. So, our procedures. This research will take about 4 years, with spending 2 full semesters at each large public university and then spending 1 full semester at the small public universities, with an additional 6 months left to analyze the data and prepare the report. We've already received permission from Florida Gulf Coast University to receive data from their students for the fall and spring semesters of academic 2023 and 2024, and we are currently working on terms with Florida Southwestern State College the academic year of 2023 and 2024, with a time spent at Lee campus and Collier campus. Through the quantitative research, we can measure that the increase in anxiety for white college students who had parents who used an authoritative parenting style. Using parenting style surveys and anxiety tests, we can measure the increase or decrease of anxiety in white college students in the Southwest Florida area. One at the universities, we will have students scan a QR code for the Parenting Style Dimensions Questionnaire and the Penn State Worry Questionnaire. We will ask white college students if they would like to participate in our research study. If they decide to do so, we will have them fill out the parenting style test, and we will then have them fill out the parenting style survey and do the anxiety survey. With this, we'll tell them it takes about 15 minutes to complete each. And once they've completed both surveys, in the surveys, we will also have them put names and contact information, so that we can contact them if needed, and we can also send them results if they are actually curious to know how much their anxiety has increased depending on the parenting style while at college. After both surveys have been done and completed, we will then give them each information to the psychological health services institution, along with an email to contact us if they have any questions later regarding the research. Some design and treatment. Since the study is a quantitative research with correlation variables, we are going to use the t-test to analyze the data we collect from both surveys of the anxiety survey and the parenting style survey. And we can compare the data between each unique parenting style and the results of the anxiety survey to see if there's a positive correlation between the authoritative parenting style and high anxiety. We would use ANOVA, which would use the categorical and the predictive variable, which would allow us to see the quantitative outcome of our results. Thank you. If you have any questions, email me. Thank you.